In part two of triangle trigonometry, we're going to talk about the right triangle only using opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse using SOHCAHTOA. We're going to use my favorite person, the little orange man. This is part two of trigonometry, sine, cosine, and tangent. Let's do an example of a tree. Do you have to climb a tree in order to measure it? Well, we're given a problem here, a drawing of a tree which is height unknown, x, and a person on the ground can see the tree at an angle of 25 degrees. With a tape measure, they could measure from the base of the tree that it's 70 feet away. So when I see this drawing, according to my sine, cosine, and tangent, I see this side is opposite, x is opposite, but it's unknown, and 70 is next to the little person or yourself, and that is adjacent. So that would be tangent. The two sides we know are the ratio opposite over adjacent. Tangent of 25 degrees equals x over 70. Now notice that the x is divided by 70, and we need to get the 70 reversed to the other side. So the reverse of dividing by 70 is multiplying by 70. Now you got to multiply on both sides. The 70s on the right side cancel. So x equals 70 tangent of 25 degrees. Once again, remember when you do this on your calculator, it must be in degree mode. In part one, I showed you how to do that on a scientific calculator, also on a graphing calculator. So on a calculator, this would give me 32.64 feet. Now that's rounded. Depends to how many places that you would like to round it. A little overview. Remember that SOHCAHTOA, that's the theme. Sine of an angle equals the opposite side over the hypotenuse of a right triangle, SOH. Cosine of an angle is adjacent over hypotenuse, CAH, and tangent is the opposite side ratio over the adjacent side, TOA. So these are SOHCAHTOA. You only use one of them. It depends on which angle you know and which side you know. A little reminder here about right triangles. The hypotenuse is always opposite to the right angle. It's the longest side. The angles are capitalized, ABC or DEF, and the sides are lowercase, ABC. Then the two angles, A and B, that aren't 90 will add up to be 90. And then I use this little man to help us to think about where the opposite or the adjacent side is. I want us to look just a minute at some vocabulary related to right triangle trig. One is, again, we're using SOHCAHTOA, is the line of sight. Now, on this diagram, on the left, the line of sight is that line. We'll call it the hypotenuse. The little man here belongs with the airplane right there. This is called an angle of elevation. When you're on the ground looking up, your eyes are raised up. They are elevated from the horizon. The horizon would represent the ground. Or, say you're in a lighthouse looking down. Your eyes are looking down. You are doing what with your eyes when you are depressed? Well, your eyes are just a little down. So the angle of depression is what is being viewed with the horizon parallel to the ground. You'll also see the words and want to note to and from. Those are key as to where this little stick figure, which is represented by U, is located. So angle of elevation or angle of depression. Let's take it a step further. In geometry, we talk about parallel lines, and we use these little symbols right here, tick marks, to show these two lines are parallel to each other. Also in geometry, we talk about the concept of alternate interior angles are congruent. In this case, that means this angle right here, which we would call angle of depression, and this angle right here, these two are congruent, that would be the angle of elevation. So the good news is when you know one, you will automatically know the other. You can adjust your picture accordingly. Height on this triangle would be the same as the height on this other triangle. These two triangles would then be congruent or the same size to each other. So let's move ahead with those examples that are there. Again, SOHCAHTOA, that's the star of what we're doing. And here we have an airplane, can be seen by a man on the ground at an angle of elevation of 32 degrees. Now elevated, he's on the ground. The airplane is a ground distance of 5,280 feet from the man. What is the altitude of the airplane? So let's label our drawing. We're given 5,280 feet is the ground distance from the man. That's something he could come up with or measure. And the height or the altitude is at 90 degrees to the ground is unknown, and that's x. Once again, when we look for which trig ratio would I use, because where the man is, the x is opposite, and the 5,280 is next to him and adjacent, that would be tangent. So the tangent of 32 degrees equals x over 5,280. Again, the little problem is x is divided by 5,280 and needs to be by itself. So I reverse division, which is multiplication. And I take 5,280 times both sides, and of course that will cancel over here on this side. And that's the need that we have now for the calculator to look this up. On the last video, I did that with the scientific and the graphing calculator. So that would be 3,299.31 feet. Let's try that again with the second illustration. A sailboat can be seen by a man in the lighthouse at an angle of depression of 21 degrees. Remember that depression, you're looking down. The boat is a height difference of 80 feet below the man on the lighthouse. What is the distance of the sailboat from the base of the lighthouse? And of course, the purpose of a lighthouse is to keep boats away from rocks so they can realize they can't get any closer. Let's label our picture. 80 feet is the height from the surface of the earth, of the water, up to the height of the lighthouse. And the distance from the lighthouse or the base of the lighthouse, the boat doesn't want to hit land. So the tangent is used. The tangent of 21 degrees equals 80 over x. Again, that x is in the denominator and it has a divide sign between it and 80. And the reverse of dividing by x is going to be multiplied by x. We could say x over 1. The x's cancel on the right side, so we also need to move now from the x on the left side, the tangent of 21 degrees. So the reverse is division. Tangent of 21 degrees on both sides. So again, another calculator problem. When I look it up, 208.407 feet. So just as a quick review, the purpose of this trig 1 and 2 is to explain sine, cosine, and tangent and their relationship to opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. And the star of the show is where is the man standing at which acute angle, A or B. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more, particularly on trig inverse. Thanks for checking out our many videos on trig, geometry, and algebra. Subscribe down below, give us a thumbs up, comments on topics you want.